Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Charge application tutorial. The charge process is initiated by a registered advocate, and the registered advocate must also be registered on the ArdhiSasa platform. Key in your ArdhiSasa ID as an ArdhiSasa advocate, enter your password, and then click Continue. When you click Continue, you'll be provided with a one-time password code, an OTP, which will be sent to the phone number you used to register with on the platform. Once you have received the OTP, type the code onto the OTP prompt box and then click Log In. As an advocate, when you're first logged in, the account you are logged in as is your private account. For you to perform a charge process, you will need to switch to your advocate account, so you do so by clicking on the profile icon. It will display a drop-down menu with a professional account which has been approved for you as an advocate. Switch to your advocate account and you will be able to proceed and initiate a charge process. On your dashboard, you will find a number of services listed under the several departments we have in the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning. The charge process is under the Land Registration Department. There are various services offered under the land registration, as you can see, but the one we are interested in at the moment is that of the charge. So when you click on charge, you'll be provided with the various services we have under the charge. There are a number of them, beginning with a charge, consent for a second or subsequent charge, discharge of charge, informal charge, memorandum of variation of charge, transfer of charge, and finally the partial discharge of charge. Our tutorial is going to be based on charge, so you'll proceed and click on charge. Upon doing so, you'll be navigated to the applications page, and under the applications page, there are a number of tabs provided. We have 5 tabs, namely pending, ongoing, completed, rejected, and cancelled. All the charge services that you have initiated as an advocate will be listed among the tabs provided depending on the level of your application. The pending tab is for the applications that you have initiated, but there's still action that is required to be fulfilled. The ongoing tab features charge applications that you are part of, but no action is required from you. At this stage, the application is still ongoing. The completed tab is for charge applications which you have completed and have been approved by the relevant ministry officials. The rejected tab is for charge applications that have been rejected by the ministry officials for one reason or another. And the cancel tab is for charge applications which have been cancelled by the different parties involved in the charge application process. For you to initiate a charge application as an advocate, you will click on the New Application tab on the top right-hand corner. When you click on the New Application button, you'll be navigated to a page with FAQs, which is the frequently asked questions related to the charge. You can go ahead and explore the FAQs to get some of the terminologies used in the charge process. When you're satisfied with the FAQs, you can proceed and click Next. And you will be navigated to the charge details section. Under this section, you'll be first required to select the charge application type. This prompt is necessitated by the fact that this could either be the first charge application or it could be an additional charge, which means you already have an existing charge and you want to take an additional charge. So if you click on additional charge, more fields under the charge details will be populated. First, we have the field label Enter the charge title. We also have the additional charge type field, and also the field where you get to provide the consent for second or subsequent charge reference number. If you are applying for a second charge, whereby you already have a charge and you want to take a second charge with another bank, you will duly be required to provide a second or subsequent charge reference number, which is a separate application process on the platform. So once you've applied, you will get a reference number, which you will key in on the field provided here. You are also required to provide the charge title, which for example could be second further charge, and on the additional charge type, it will be a subsequent charge. And then proceed to the next section, which will be parcel and principal amount details. However, if it is a new chargee, you'll have to provide the consent for charge reference number in the field provided. So for this tutorial, we'll proceed with the first charge, which means there is no existing charge on that piece of land. After you select the charge, navigate to the parcel and principal amount details section, where you'll be required to key in the parcel number. So kindly key in your parcel number following the format Nairobi/block and then the block number without any space in between, / the parcel number, and then click on the add button. If you're charging more than one parcel, you will proceed and type the second parcel in the same format and you click on add. So you can add all the parcels you want to include in that charge you are applying for at your own convenience. For this case, we are only going to deal with one parcel, and then you'll proceed to the principal amount section, which is where you enter the amount to be borrowed. For this tutorial, we'll go with 700,000. After entering the principal amount, you'll select the currency that the amount will be in. There are a number of currencies provided. You can scroll through to get the currency that you are interested in, but for this case, we'll proceed with using Kenya shillings. So after the parcel and principal amount details, kindly proceed to the chargeor details, whereby you will input the required details of the chargeor. A key thing to note is that you ought to provide the details of the chargeor using their ArdhiSasa ID. So the chargeor, and in this case the chargee and the borrower, must have provided you with their ArdhiSasa ID. To obtain the required ArdhiSasa ID, head on to the account section on the left panel of your screen and click on it. Upon doing so, you'll be provided with the information about the account holder, and among the information provided is the ArdhiSasa ID. If your client doesn't know where to find their ArdhiSasa ID, you can advise them accordingly on how to do so. Once they have provided you with the ArdhiSasa ID, you will key it in the prompt box featured in the chargeor details section. Upon doing so, kindly click on search. You'll receive a pop-up box requiring you to choose the category of person to execute as the chargeor. There are two categories. First, the chargeor can execute on his or her own behalf, or an attorney can execute on behalf of a chargeor. If it is an attorney executing on behalf of a chargeor, you'll select attorney. Then you'll be required to provide power of attorney entry number. So kindly key in the power of attorney entry number in the format Nairobi / the entry number / the month of registration / the year of registration, and then click on search. Once you search, you'll get the message attorney added successfully on the top right corner of your screen, and the name of the attorney will appear underneath the search bar. You will also be required to enter the ArdhiSasa ID of the attorney. If there is more than one attorney acting or executing on behalf of the chargeor, you can key in the power of attorney entry number of the second attorney in the same format, and then click on search. The name of the second attorney will also appear underneath the search bar, and also you'll be required to input the ArdhiSasa ID of the second attorney. Once you are done entering the entry numbers of the attorneys, you can click on save, and the attorneys will be listed against the chargeor. For the purpose of our demonstration, we'll go with the self option instead, which means that the chargeor is executing on his or her own behalf, and then click on save. You should also note that upon clicking on save, the chargeor will be listed, and beside the chargeor we have the person executing on behalf of the chargeor. In this case, the chargeor is executing for him or himself. You can then proceed to the chargee details section, where you'll be required to provide the ArdhiSasa ID of the chargee. If it's a bank, you'll provide the ArdhiSasa ID of the bank. Kindly proceed and input the ArdhiSasa ID of the bank and then click on search. Upon doing so, you'll get a brief pop-up message on the top right corner of your screen informing you that the user has been added successfully. And you will also get a pop-up box requiring you to select the category of the person to execute as the chargee. Under the chargee, there are two categories of people. First, it could be a director or an attorney. If you choose the attorney option, you'll be required to provide the power of attorney entry number just the same way we did with the chargeor, in the format registry / the entry number / the month of registration / the year of registration, and then click search. Upon doing so, you'll get a pop-up message on the top right corner of your screen informing you that the attorney has been added successfully, and the name of the attorney will be listed below the search bar of the pop-up box, and you will be required to enter the ArdhiSasa ID of the attorney and then click on save. Once you do so, the attorney will be listed alongside the chargee. In our case, we will proceed with the director option. We'll enter the ArdhiSasa ID of the director and then click on search. Upon doing so, you will get a pop-up message on the top right corner of your screen informing you that the user has been added successfully and the name of the director will be listed underneath the search box. Kindly proceed to clicking save, or you can add another director if there are more who will be executing on behalf of the chargee. So once you have listed all the directors who are involved, go ahead and click on save. Upon doing so, under the chargee details section, you will see the name of the chargee and you'll also see the director or person executing on behalf of the chargee. Once you're satisfied with the chargee details, you can proceed to the borrower details, where you'll be required to key in the ArdhiSasa ID of the borrower. It's also key to note that the charger could be the borrower or a totally different person from the charger, so kindly input the ArdhiSasa ID of the borrower. In this case, the charger and the borrower is the same person, so I'll input the ArdhiSasa ID of the charger and click on search. Upon doing so, you'll get a pop-up message on the top right corner of your screen informing you that the user has been added successfully, as well as a pop-up box requiring you to select the category of the person to execute as the borrower. It can either be the borrower executing on his or her own behalf or using an attorney. So if you choose the attorney option, you'll be required to enter the power of attorney entry number and then click on search. If it's the borrower executing on his or her own behalf, you will click on self and then click on save. Once you do so, you'll get the name of the borrower as well as the person executing for the borrower listed. After that, you can go ahead and click on next, where you'll be navigated to the debenture details section. Under the debenture details section, we have the debenture details. This particular section is for the companies which would wish to provide additional assets for the purpose of charge processing. To begin with, they will be required to enter the stamp duty receipt number for the supplemental/collateral debenture. They'll also be required to enter the principal instrument for supplemental/collateral to debenture. And lastly, they will be required to enter the amount secured for supplemental or collateral to debenture. If it is an individual applying for the charge, you will navigate downwards to the law firm details and enter the law firm details of the law firm applying or the law firm that the advocate is acting under. First off, provide the name of the law firm. Also provide the physical address of the law firm. You'll also provide the postal address of the law firm. You'll also provide the street address of the law firm, if applicable. You'll also enter the phone number of the law firm. You'll also enter the email address of the law firm. And lastly, you'll provide the website of the law firm, if applicable. After the law firm details, you'll proceed to the whereas section. This is the section where you'll provide the conditions or agreements that binds the charge, or the agreements by the parties that binds the charge. There are default whereas details that have been provided, as you can see, but as an advocate, you have the liberty of editing or removing the default whereas details and provide your own preferred whereas details. You also have the option of adding more whereas details to the default whereas details provided. If you'd wish to edit the first detail, you can copy the text and paste it on the adjacent box area provided. Remove the first one and edit the whereas details as you would wish to appear. Once you're done with the edits, you can go ahead and click on add, and this is the same method you will use if you'd wish to add more and more whereas details depending on the agreements and the conditions provided by the parties involved. So once you are satisfied with your whereas conditions or whereas details you have provided, you can proceed to the stamp duty details section. Under this section, you'll be required to select on whether to apply for exemption of stamp duty. Exemption of stamp duty is guided by an act or a legal clause, so you will apply for exemption of stamp duty payment depending on the legal clause that the stamp duty payment will fall under. So we have a number of options offered, which basically gives you options of the particular section under which the exemption is being sought. So here we have section 17. We also have other section, where you'll be required to enter the section and the chapter under which the exemption is being sought. We also have the option of legal notices, whereby you'll be required to enter the legal notice number and also enter the date of the legal notice. So for the purpose of this demonstration, we will not be applying for stamp duty, so we'll click on No Exemption. A key aspect to note is that when you apply for stamp duty exemption, the charge application will proceed to the collector of stamp duties for determination on whether the charge details qualifies for exemption for stamp duty or not. If you choose not to exempt, an invoice for stamp duty payment will automatically be generated by the system. So after you filled in the stamp duty details, you'll proceed and click Next. The next section is the document section. This is where you'll be required to provide the required documents, and you can also provide additional documents which you feel will support the application of the charge. So go ahead and click on Choose, and you'll be navigated to your local machine or device, whereby you will upload the documents you have prepared, and the document will be listed against the Choose File button. If you have additional documents which you feel will support the charge application, you have an option of providing those documents. Below the Choose File option, there is a field for adding additional documents, and you'll be required to type in the name of the document with which you want to be featured so that the Choose File option can be active. So if you have an additional document, go ahead and type in the name of the document, and once you do so, the Choose File button will be active. Click on it and it will navigate you to your local device from which you can upload the document. Once you do so, the additional document will be listed on the right side of your screen under Uploaded Documents. If you're satisfied with the documents you have submitted to facilitate the charge application process, you can proceed and click on Next. The last step is the confirmation step with all the details that you have provided. So scroll through the entire page and go through the details you have provided. If satisfied with the details provided, you can click on Submit. You also have the option of going back if you need to edit any information. For this case, we'll proceed and click on Submit. Upon doing so, you'll be prompted to approve on whether you indeed want to submit the request, and then proceed and click on Yes. You'll then get a confirmation message on a pop-up box which affirms that the application has been created successfully, and then click on Close. So after you've submitted your application, the next step is for the parties involved to consent to the charge. This happens by the parties logging into their personal accounts, and once they're in, they'll get a notification, and when they click on notifications, they'll get a list of charge applications, and they can consent on or reject the applications depending on the reasons they have. A key thing to note is that you can view the progress level of your application on the progress bar, as is featured on the upper section of your screen upon submission of your application. So once all the parties involved in the charge application have consented, for you as an advocate on your screen, under the application verification section, you'll see the status on verification by the involved parties under the OTP status, and you'll also see the signature status as well. And in our case, they have both verified and signed. After the application verification section, kindly proceed to the execution section where you accept whether to represent the parties listed. So if you as an advocate choose to accept to represent all the parties involved, you will click on Accept. And if you wish not to represent one or all of the parties involved, you can click on Reject, and the parties involved will get a notification that you have rejected to represent them, and they will have an option of selecting or adding another advocate to represent them. So in our case, we'll choose to accept to represent all the parties involved, and once you do so, you'll get a pop-up notification affirming that you have successfully accepted, and you will also do the same for all the parties you'd wish to represent. Once you have accepted or executed on this, you can proceed and append your signature as an advocate. So to append your signature, you have two options. You can either sign on the signing pad area using your mouse and click on Save. The second option is signing using another device using the 4 available options. So proceed and append your signature and click on Save. There's a pop-up notification that will appear requiring you to affirm that you want to submit this as your signature. Click on Yes. In doing so, you'll have completed the application up to the point of accepting execution and the parties involved consenting to the charge. Once you complete your part as an advocate and all parties have verified and signed, an invoice will be generated automatically by the system. If you had not applied for exemption from stamp duty, you will receive an invoice requiring you to pay the full stamp duty. However, if you have been approved for exemption by the collector of stamp duties, an invoice will be generated requiring you to pay a nominal fee. Also, it is key to note that all the parties involved in the charge application process will also receive the same invoice, and any of them can pay for the stamp duty. For the invoice, you have the option of viewing the invoice. So when you click on View, you have two options. You have the invoice and the receipt. The receipt option is not active until the stamp duty is paid. So if you click on the invoice, you will be provided with the invoice and the payment methods available. When you click on Pay, you will be provided with the available methods of payment as well as the procedures to be used. Once the payment is made, the Submit Request button on the top right-hand corner is activated, and you'll be able to submit your charge application. Also, a Cancel Application tab is provided, and it is provided for all the parties involved. If at one point any of the parties involved feel the need to cancel the application for whatever reasons, they have an option of cancelling the application. If they proceed on doing so, all the parties involved in the charge application process will get a notification that the charge has been cancelled, and they will be required to consent to the cancellation by providing an OTP code that will be sent to their phones. Also, they will be required to append their signatures. So at this point, we'll proceed and submit our application. A pop-up notification will appear requiring you to affirm on whether or not you want to submit the request. In our case, we'll proceed and click on Yes, and there will be another pop-up notification confirming that your charge application has been successfully submitted, and then click on Close. At this point, your role as an advocate in this process is complete, and once you refresh the web page, you'll be able to see the progress of your application thus far on the progress bar. For this case, it is at 60%. Underneath the progress bar, you'll be able to view the status of the application. At every point an action is done to the charge application by the ministry staff, you'll get a notification. Whether or not the application is approved or rejected, a notification will be sent to you. That's it for this tutorial on how to do a charge application on ArdhiSasa. Feel free to give feedback on this tutorial in the comment section below. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell button alongside the subscribe button to get notifications of new videos as and when we post them. Thank you and goodbye.